Hello, welcome to Fabulous Food. Today we're going to be making bean enchiladas. Now before we can start to cook, we need to prepare all the vegetables we're going to be using. The recipe says 2 onions, but my onions here are very tiny, so I've got 3. I've got 300 grams of carrots. Again, they're quite small, thin carrots, so that's why I've got so many. And 100 grams of vegetables of your own choice. I've got this little bit of red cabbage in my fridge that needs using up, so I'm going to use that. But you could use anything you've got, courgettes or leeks or even frozen vegetables, perhaps some frozen sweet corn or peas. It's completely up to you. First of all, we're going to prepare the onions. So we take our knife, we hold the onion well away from the knife with a pincer grip, we cut off the tip, we turn it round, we cut off the root like that, and then we peel the onion. So take off any layers that aren't going to be good to eat. Use your nail just to get underneath like that. So I'm taking off the brown papery skin, and there's also another layer under there that won't be good to eat. So I'll do that for all 3 onions. And then when I've done that, I'm going to use my bridge hold over the top of the onion, put my knife through the bridge, just rock it gently to come down, put the flat side of my onion on the worktop so it's nice and stable, bridge grip again, knife through the bridge 3 or 4 times depending on the size of your onion. So I'm going to try and keep my onion together, and that means I can turn it round and come across and dice it like that. So I'll just show you once more, flat side to the worktop, knife through the bridge like that. And then if you can't manage to hold it together, just come across and cut each of these pieces individually, and do that for all of your onions. So I've chopped up all my onions, and I'm going to make sure I put all of the waste, all the brown skin, away from my board. I don't want them to end up in with my bean enchilada mix. The next vegetable I'm going to prepare are my carrots. I've washed my carrots, but I'm not going to bother peeling them. You can do if you'd like to. And I'm going to cut off the tail on each carrot, but I'm going to leave the tip or the top of the carrot on, because that gives me something to hold on to when I'm grating them. So you might not have as many carrots as me. As I said, mine are very tiny. So pop all those bits into your compost box or into your food waste box. Get yourself a grater. I'm going to use the large holes on the grater. I'm going to take the carrot, hold it at the tip, slight angle to get more surface area, and we're going to grate down each carrot like this. Make sure the grater's on the board, don't hold it up in the air, it's much harder that way. Keep going till you've got all your carrots grated. Those last little bits you can either nibble yourself if you're feeling a bit peckish, or pop them in your compost box. So I've finished grating my carrot. I'm going to move it over towards the onion like that. Remember, you can put your fingers inside the grater to scrape out all the bits of carrot, but don't run your fingers down the sharp edge because you'll end up cutting your fingers. And the last ingredient I need to prepare for now is the red cabbage. So I'm going to use a bridge hold for this, and I'm going to come across through my bridge so I have 2 thinner pieces of cabbage like that. I'm going to hold them together with my pincer grip. I'm just going to cut slices. I don't want them to be too big because they won't cook through then, and they'll be tough. I'm going to come across like that. So you'll be preparing the vegetables you've chosen now. So as I said, that could be courgettes, it could be leeks, it could be a bit of celery, anything you've got in your fridge. Or if you haven't got anything to use up in your fridge, then use some frozen vegetables or a can of vegetables. Anything will do. Just make sure that you've got 100 grams of whatever you're going to add. So just before we start cooking, you might want to give your grater a quick rinse so it's ready to grate the cheddar later on. I've just done that. And I'm going to add a tablespoon of olive oil to my frying pan. Don't need to measure it, you can just guess. I'm going to turn up the heat to full because I'm going to be adding a lot of cold ingredients. And I'm going to tip them in now before the oil gets too hot in case it splashes onto me. So just scrape your board off like that, don't waste any of the ingredients that we've been chopping. And as the heat comes through into the pan, we'll begin to hear it sizzling. So you can hear that it's sizzling now. I'm just going to give it a good stir, make sure everything's coated with a little bit of oil and that all of the ingredients are thoroughly mixed. And then I'm going to turn the heat down to medium and I'm going to leave it just to fry for 5 to 10 minutes. Keep an eye on it and we'll be back soon. I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of chilli powder because I'm using hot chilli powder, and then I'm going to leave it to cook for another minute. Don't forget to give it a good stir, and then we're going to add 1 can of chopped tomatoes. Give it a good shake, make sure you get it all out the bottom, and we're going to add 1 can of pulses. Now I'm using Mexican style mixed bean mix. They actually come in water, so I need to drain it before I can add it. So I'm going to use a sieve over my sink. So my beans are drained now, so I'm going to add those in to my mix. And I've also just put a tiny bit of water in the bottom of my tomato can. I'm just going to swill it round to get the rest of the tomatoes out and give it another stir. So now all those ingredients are added, we need to bring it up to the boil. So we're going to have to turn the heat back up now to high and wait till it starts boiling. So there'll be a lot more steam coming off of it and you should be able to see some tiny bubbles. So you can hear that it's really boiling now. I'm going to turn it down to medium heat again. I'm going to put a lid on because I don't want to lose the moisture. I'll check it as it's cooking, and if it looks too wet I'll take the lid off in a few minutes so it can dry out a bit. I'm going to set my timer for 10 minutes and then we'll be ready to move on to the next stage. My enchilada mix has got 3 more minutes to cook and it's looking slightly wet now, which I don't want. It will make my tortillas soggy. So I've taken the lid off and I'm going to cook it now for 3 more minutes. So my timer's going off now. My bean enchilada mix is cooked. It's dried out sufficiently. I'm going to turn the heat off and just leave it to cool down now for 10 minutes or so before I put it into the tortillas, and then I won't burn my fingers. My mix has been cooling down for 10 minutes or so it's ready to put into my tortilla wraps. So I've got a packet here. If you're going to use wholemeal wraps, they will be healthier. These are wheat and corn ones, so they've got a slightly yellow tinge to them. There are 8 here, so when I'm putting my mix in, I can think about how I'm going to share it out between 8 tortillas. But before we start, we're going to put a little bit of the mix in the bottom of our dish, and that will stop the tortilla wraps from sticking to the bottom of the dish. So you can either lie 8 in a row along here, or if you've only got a small dish, you can have 4 and then put 4 on top and pile them up like that. So put that to one side a minute. I'm going to take my wrap. I'm going to put a spoonful of mixture like that, perhaps a little bit more. And then I'm going to fold over this edge that's closest to me, over the top of where I've put the mix in. I'm just going to pull it back like that, nice and tight, and then I'm going to finish rolling it. I don't need to tuck the ends in today because we're not making wraps that we're going to pick up and eat. And then I'm going to lie it in the dish. So I'll do one more to show you. So one or 2 spoons of mixture, about there. I'll put a little bit more in this time. Fold the edge over that's nearest you to the middle, and then just pull it back on itself and carry on rolling. Pop it in the dish, and I'll finish them off now. So I'm just doing my last one now. So again, bring it to the middle, pull it back, roll it round, and then when you put it in your dish, make sure that the edge that's open like that is on the bottom, and that will stop them all unwinding in your dish. So I've got a little bit of mix left in my pan, so I'm just going to scrape that over the top. I don't want to waste any of it. There, just spread it out so everybody gets a little bit of extra mix like that. There we are. And then we're going to put some yoghurt on the top. So the recipe says 150 grams of low-fat yoghurt. This tub has got 500 grams in, so I'm going to use about 1/3 of it. You could use a little bit more if you've got a nice wide big dish like I have, or you might find if you've got a smaller dish you only need 100 grams. But just keep going until you think you've got enough on there. So I'm going to leave mine like that, and then I'm going to grate the cheese to go on the top. Do you remember we washed the grater, so it should be dry now. I'm going to grate my cheddar on the big holes of the grater. Keep your fingers out of the way. There we are, like that. Get those last little bits. Put your hand inside the grater to pull the bits of cheese down, but don't scrape the outside because it's sharp. Put our dish back and sprinkle our cheese over the top. And then at this stage you can either put it in the fridge until tea time if you're not ready to eat it. If you're going to have it for tea straight away, put it in the oven at 180 degrees C or 160 degrees if it's a fan oven, and cook it for 30 minutes, and that should be lovely and golden brown on the top and taste absolutely delicious.